Well, here's something you might not be used to. Warzone Season 1 Reloaded just revealed on Wednesday, right? What if I told you that something from that update was already canceled? Sounds crazy, but turns out that's actually the case. Today we're running down one of the major Warzone changes that is being completely removed from the upcoming update as a result of community feedback, so drop your thoughts as we go along. What do you think of this change to the scheduled content? Like it, dislike it, whatever the case, drop your thoughts. Drop a like if you enjoy the video, and subscribe for more content like Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone coverage, stuff on the finals, X Defiant, and more. And finally, use code Espresso for up to 30% off your entire order of G Fuel, but more on that a little later. So firstly, when previewed on Wednesday, we got a little bit of information about this upcoming feature called the Covert Exfil. It was described as a way for players to exfil the match early with the help of a covert exfil, with only 5 available to purchase per match for a high price in buy stations before the gulag closes. A covert exfil would call a helicopter in that would fly any player out of the match, ideally with the weapon case in their possession. Players could also compete to earn the most successful covert exfils with a new covert exfil leaderboard stat. So it was a secondary air quote win condition, though it wasn't a way to actually win the game. It didn't count as a win. It just simply exfilled you out of there. Now, there were only going to be 5 per game at a steep price. There was no price given to it. My guess would have been anywhere from like 20 to 30,000 in cash. But again, that could be low ball. That could be a high ball. We just don't know. But again, with this not counting as a win, what was the even purpose of adding a DMZ element in to this gameplay loop when in reality, if you take a look at it, with nothing really to go for or no real reason to do it, you just be queuing in and then leaving a game with no sort of actual end game result coming along with it. You'd just be essentially wasting your time. Well, the purpose was seemingly for the introduction of another DMZ feature called the weapons case, which that was detailed as a single weapon case spawns in a small search area at the start of every match. Once found, the player holding the weapon case is marked for all enemies in that match. If a player holding the case manages to stay alive at the end of the match, or their squad exits the match using a helicopter called in by purchasing a covert exfil, they and their teammates earn exclusive rewards. So fundamentally speaking, that would be something that would allow you to earn those rewards and not have to hold on to something that, as it worked in DMZ, would mark you for the entire map to see for the rest of that duration of the match. You wouldn't have to have that target on your back for the next 5 to 10 to maybe 15 minutes, depending on when you pick up that weapons case. You could just simply get in and get out and have those rewards credited to your account as well as your teammates, which is a cool little feature that came along with that. Though that to me would be the only reason to ever take this. And it was even mentioned by Ted Timmons that he expected this to have a relatively, on average, less than 1 completion for a covert exfil per match. So it seemed like it wouldn't be something you'd end up seeing a whole ton. And in practicality, when you thought about it, I would probably never interact with this at all. But the community reception was something, as always, the internet has a lot to say with this. It wasn't good by any means. Like a surprisingly overwhelmingly negative initial response to something that I personally thought was just kind of pointless. But it was like genuinely angry reactions. And it seemed like it was from the notion of we're taking players out of an experience that is already sort of lacking in terms of player count. If you guys have followed Warzone from the beginning, you know we've had this roller coaster of player counts. You've had 150 as a base. We had LTMs that even in the Verdansk days went up to 200 players, something I don't think we'll ever see again, but man, those were so fun to play with. But then we saw 100 with Caldera. It jumped back up to like 120-ish. Then with Urzikstan, the new basis was once again 100. So you had a lower than what people had hoped player count from the very beginning. And if you take players off the map, if you're doing this in solos, sure, only 5 exfils means only 5 players can potentially leave. But in quads, you could potentially take off a fifth of the entire player base, 20%, just based off of these covert exfils. So it was something that did cause genuine concern. But again, I don't think it would have been something that would have been seen too much used outside of that first day or two. So it really came down to what side of the coin you'd fall on and how you saw this received. However, as of earlier yesterday, Raven Software came out with a statement and tweeted, "Over the last few days, we've seen your feedback about the Covert Exfil feature and have decided not to launch it in standard Battle Royale with Season 1 Reloaded next week. We believe that Covert Exfil and the gameplay loop it provides, paired with the weapons case, will make for an exciting addition to Warzone. That said, we'll instead launch both of these new features in an upcoming dedicated mode. We're looking forward to the new challenges that these features will provide and to your continued feedback once the mode is available." So first and foremost, number one, I think it's cool to see some sort of immediate reaction and sort of feedback taken into account, not waiting an entire season to remove something that could be problematic. Although that said, with this in particular, as I mentioned, personally, I kind of saw that outside of the weapons case, it'd be kind of pointless. I don't really think that there's a pro or con big picture to adding a DMZ feature to Battle Royale. I mean, it doesn't really help you if you end up leaving the match if you don't have that weapons case or you're not going for it. But at the same time, if there's not many people going for those weapons cases and there's only one per match, realistically, you're probably not going to see the gameplay loop hindered that much. Again, max case, if a team ends up having that weapons case, I'd probably say the only reason you'd see anybody leave are those 4 players, upwards of 4 players, going for that weapons case. So it's cool to see initial feedback in something that's acted upon, again, not outside of waiting a whole season to see the data or something for it, but at the same time, like, this is one of those things that, to me, of all the things you could immediately react to, this kind of seems like a more pointless one. Again, I know some people are way more enthusiastic one way or the other about this sort of thing, but I feel like this is a smaller scale issue to completely remove outside of it. But anyways, that then moves towards the future, because we are going to see this again at some point, just not season 1 Reloaded here upcoming. Maybe this is something because the resources are already there. It's already something that's been developed. Maybe this is something we see before season 2, or maybe at that launch of season 2. But I'm curious to see what an LTM will look like, or the sort of dedicated playlist will look like for this in regards to adding a covert exfil, adding a weapons case, because at that point, if you're making a mode for it, isn't that just DMZ? Aren't we getting that back at that point? Like, if that's going to be your focal point of it and you have a mode for earning things like that, well, one, it not only puts even more pressure on the fact of adding those cases and having a target on your back as is, but you kind of shift the entire focus of Battle Royale entirely at that point. I'm also very curious to see if this will be something that is a sort of continual mode, or if it's going to be something that is an LTM. They said it's a dedicated mode, but they didn't say if it's going to be a limited time thing, if it's going to be something that stays around for an entire season. We don't quite know, but it's certainly an interesting choice, I think. So that said, one of the key features here that was added on the Warzone side of things within Warzone Season 1 Reloaded is now going to be taken out. And it seems like that weapons case may also be getting pulled temporarily as a result of this, but we'll have to wait and see. So that significantly cuts into the amount of content coming with Warzone on the Season 1 Reloaded side of things, and that may or may not be a good thing or bad thing depending on, again, where you fall on it. You might not care about Warzone, you might be really looking forward to something like this, but for right now, there has been a change in plans. So that said, that is going to wrap it up. Before we do though, make sure to check out my friends over at G Fuel, and make sure to use code ESPRESSO for up to 30% off your entire order. To me, G Fuel is my cup of coffee in the morning, gets my productivity flowing, that day started. Whether you want to grab a restock or pick something up for your very first time, grab your favorite tubs like Hype Sauce, Pog Juice, or something like a starter kit that comes with a shaker cup alongside that. Code ESPRESSO can help you out with anywhere from 20 to 30% off year round. So if you guys want to check that out, check the link in the description below and use code ESPRESSO at checkout. But for now, that's what we're going to call it. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of the removal of this new feature that's been advertised? You like it, dislike it, whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. We're getting all things Modern Warfare 3, Warzone, and other FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. My name has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.